Until recently, cryptocurrency mining made buying a graphics card nearly impossible due to ridiculous mining farms, the everyman trying to mine in his apartment, and various other things, with prices spiking up to thousands of dollars for a simple graphics card. And now, after much wait and much anticipation, nearly 2 years of waiting to be exact, Nvidia shows off its new series, the 2000 series RTX instead of GTX. And it's a disappointment. You'll see this, that they replaced the blower design with a dual fan design, better cooling. However, lots of aftermarket companies such as MSI, Asus, Gigabyte, etc. are going to try to compete with that with 3 fans, meaning longer cards. That's not the biggest issue. It's just pointing it out when you see third-party designs spring up. And let's take a look at these specs. The specs are impressive, but wait till you see the price. The RTX 2070, I'll read off the base model and then the Founders additions to it. 2070 is a boost clock of 1620 MHz, 8 gigs GDDR6, and memory speed of 14 gigabits per second. This is across the board for memory speed. The Founders Edition has a slight overclock to 1710 MHz, and that's it. For the 2080, 1710 MHz base, 1800 overclock for the Founders Edition, 8 gigs of G6, 14 gigabits per second, and the 2080 Ti at a clock of 1545 MHz, excuse the thunder in the background, with an overclock of 1635 MHz. On the Founders Edition, 11 gigs of GDDR6 on both cards, 14 gigabits per second. Specs are quite impressive in comparison to the previous generation, albeit this isn't showing CUDA cores. Here you can look at the CUDA cores now, for that 2080 at least. 2080 has 2944. I believe the 2080 Ti has 4000 something, which is massive. Lots of CUDA cores, higher clock speeds, fast RAM. This sounds like a wonderful generation, doesn't it? Fast cards, it'll demolish those games you wish to play. With the inclusion of ray tracing, there, let me bring it up. Ray tracing being a more accurate lighting. So, for example, you can see this man having a barbecue, and it'll look so very pretty. However, that comes at a cost, and not just frame rate. And they won't come cheap is an understatement. The 2070 is $800. The 2080, I'm sorry, I'm goofing. The 2070 is $600. The 2080 is $800, and the 2080 Ti is $1,200 for a graphics card. Oh, and the Titan V is $3,000. Just in case you're wondering. These prices are astronomical. For perspective, back when the 900 series released, the GTX 970 had a base MSRP of $330 US. The 980 had a price of $549 to $550, and the 980 Ti had a price of $649 $650. When the 10 series rolled around and Pascal was the biggest craze and people were losing their minds over the performance gains over Maxa, which were sizable, I must admit, the 1070 was $450, the 1080 was $700, and the 1080 Ti was, it's been so long, $850 I believe, $800 to $850, maybe $750 depending on the outlet. However, when you take into account how the Founders Edition stuff completely threw the market out of whack, because Nvidia would say, for example, the let's say the 1080, they would say we want the base price to be $700, but we want to charge $800 for our Founders Editions. Now you have all these add-in board partners look at this and say, well, we'd like to make some money too, Bobby. So they'll charge $800 for their model, and they'll have other additions to their cards, like water blocks, closed all-in-one coolers attached to it, 3 fans, a vibrator, and maybe a 401k. Things like that attached to the graphics cards. And that increases the price. So you'd see cards go above 800. You'd see cards like a water block card go to 900. And of course, when the 1080 Ti came out, it forced down the price of the 1080 because no one would buy the 1080 at that price anymore. So anyway, when the graphics card mining stuff happened, the cryptocurrency boom of Ethereum rolled around and reared its ugly head, graphics card prices spiked. First it was AMD's Vega cards. Those things went through the roof. And once all the AMD stuff was bought out, then the Nvidia stuff was bought out, and we saw prices go incredibly high. Like, say, an RX 580, instead of going for, let's say, I don't know, $400, you could see them going for $1,000. It was insane. It was absolutely ridiculous. And if you check on eBay, the used market is flooded with burnout miner cards now. So be wary of that minefield. These prices are astronomical, and my main issue with this isn't the generational boost or the improved specs, which do look nice on paper. We haven't seen the performance numbers yet, though, so I can't make an accurate... You can't judge it yet. Wait for Linus or Jay's 2 cents or Gamers Nexus to slam some benchmarks out when these things come out September 20th for the 2080 and I believe 2080 Ti. I'm not entirely sure. I know 2080 comes out September 20th. The 2070 is to be determined. Wait for the performance numbers. However, I can guarantee you that the prices of 600, 800, and 1200, 3000 for the Titan, are ridiculous. Going from 2014, 2015 to 2018, the prices are not matching the general inflation rate. And on one hand, I can see why the cost is so high. Due to GDDR6 being brand new, it's an expensive production process. Sorry, fabrication process, excuse me. Brand new architecture via Turing, as well as tensor cores on the Titan V. I'm not entirely sure if tensor cores carry over to the lower tier models. So you have higher tier memory, you have a new fabrication process, which may be tweaked Pascal for all we know. Until we have some in-depth articles written on this, for all we know, Turing could be Pascal with tensor cores. But in the meantime, we'll have to wait for review outlets to get their reviews out there so we can see just how well these things perform. Right now, the cost is stupidly high. And I don't care if you throw in all these fancy features in the graphics card and show off ray tracing and all this other hubbub. If the graphics card is unaffordable, the graphics card is unaffordable, and that's it. I know there are always going to be people who will buy a product. These cards will sell, mark my words. People will buy these. People always buy them. But these prices are high enough that the everyman, the general consumer, the guy in college, the guy in high school saving up his money, they're going to have a much harder time getting these cards. And for what? For this? Sure, it looks pretty. But come on. It's outrageous. And this is interesting. The 2080 Ti cannot hit 60 FPS at 1080p with ray tracing. Note that it's not saying it can't hit 60 FPS at 1080. That's a joke. There's no way. It's incredibly easy for a card like that to run games at 1080p. However, running games at 1080p with high-end ray tracing on, that is not an easy feat. The card has difficulty with that. So if the 2080 Ti can't hit 60 FPS and ray tracing, you sure as hell know the 2080 and 2070 will not be able to do that. So you're paying for high-end memory, tensor cores, and ray tracing. You're paying almost double what the cards used to cost. And for what? I can't make an accurate judgment on the performance yet because we have to wait for benchmarks, but still, right now, the enthusiasm I had for the new generation really waning after this. Let me know what you all think on this pricing. I just hope that Intel gets their crap together with Raja Koduri at the wheel and comes out with their graphics cards in 2020. I hope that'll stir up some competition. Meanwhile, AMD, I have no idea what's going on in the AMD camp. So, really hoping AMD comes out with something, but given how AMD is focusing on low to mid-tier cards recently, with the 480, 580, those generations, Vega was a stab at the higher end, higher to middle end, and that didn't really go over well. So, it's going to be a rough ride. In CPU land, things look wonderful. Lots of competition, lots of cores, the core race between Intel and AMD, the prospect of ARM, maybe Samsung coming into the CPU market, Nvidia possibly going into the CPU market. Having 5 companies duke it out in CPUs would be fantastic. That would be wonderful. For graphics cards, the stagnation continues. And I am quite sad about that. So, let me know what you think. These prices are ridiculous. And these are the US prices. Look at Canadian prices, Swedish prices, Italian prices, premium European prices. It's getting ridiculous. So, let me know what you all think in the comments below. The links to the articles will be in the description. And that's it. Have a good one.